The majority of movies set at Christmas are very about the fact that they're set at Christmas. After all, that's usually the point. All of these films tend to embody or comment on the Christmas spirit or use the festive vibes for a specific purpose. But on the other end of the spectrum are Christmas set films which do almost anything but draw over attention to the fact that they're set during the holiday period, which we're gonna discuss today. I'm Ewan, this is What Culture, with 10 movies you forgot were set at Christmas. Number 10. Jurassic World. Now, granted, Jurassic World is for the most part a pretty damn forgettable movie anyway, but that's never truer than during its snow-topped establishing scene. The movie's very first scene shows brothers Zach and Gray Mitchell, played by Nick Robinson and Ty Simpkins respectively, being taken to the airport by their parents as they begin their journey to Jurassic World. Between their home being surrounded by snow and Tony Bennett's iconic "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas" playing in the car on the way to the airport, there's no room for doubt. Jurassic World is set at Christmas. But nobody could be blamed for forgetting this. It's an extremely unmemorable scene, and the rest of the movie takes place at Jurassic World, which, being situated off the coast of Costa Rica, ensures a very sunny, tropical-looking climate for the film's remainder. Number 9. Psycho. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho is one of the greatest films ever made, but among its wealth of unforgettable imagery, who among us actually remembers that it's set during the holiday period? Yep, the movie's very opening panoramic shot of downtown Phoenix, Arizona includes a title that reveals the date to be Friday, December the 11th, and a few scenes later, after Marion Crane, Janet Leigh, leaves town with money stolen from her boss, Christmas decorations are visible on the street. There's actually a fun story about this too. The street shots were filmed by a second unit crew, and so Hitchcock himself didn't actually see the decorations until he got into the editing room, at which point he contemplated reshooting the street shots without them. But instead, he quite sensibly decided it was simpler to just add a December date at the start of the movie, explaining the presence of all that Christmas paraphernalia. Number 8. Star Trek Generations. Star Trek Generations offers up an especially fun instance of this, given that while the main plot and setting make no reference at all to Christmas, there is a brief overt nod to the holiday period when Picard, Patrick Stewart, enters the extra-dimensional realm known as the Nexus in the film's third act. Picard finds himself suddenly surrounded by a vision of his imaginary wife, children, and even his dead nephew in what's clearly intended to be a very idealized, almost Dickensian rendition of Christmas. Even though it's actually a pretty lengthy scene and prominently features a Christmas tree throughout, it's still easily forgotten in a film that's best remembered for its admittedly underwhelming team-up between Picard and William Shatner's Kirk. Given that the Christmas setting is entirely imaginary too, it's perhaps a teeny bit of a cheat to include it here, but given how infrequently the holiday period is even referenced in Star Trek as a whole, it's worth allowing. Number 7. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Fast Times at Ridgemont High is one of the most iconic coming-of-age comedies ever made, with arguably its most evocative imagery involving Phoebe Cates emerging from a swimming pool and removing her bikini top on a hot sunny day. Not exactly what most folks would associate with Christmas, unless you're like me and love National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, but yeah, it's still a bit of a jarring switch. As such, it's surprisingly easy to forget that there is an entire 20-minute portion in the middle of this classic 80s comedy that's quite clearly set during the holiday season. Perhaps most notably, a young boy is shown peeing himself while sitting on a mall Santa's lap, and moments later we hear Stacy, Jennifer Jason Leigh, tell her best friend Linda, Phoebe Cates, quote, "Christmas sucks. I hate it." The scenes that follow show plenty of incidental Christmas decorations around the various featured locations, even if Christmas itself has no significant bearing on the story or characters. And given that the film was released in August of 1982 and feels in its very bones like a summer comedy, the Christmas asides come off as especially odd. Number 6. Jamanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Much like Jurassic World, the bulk of the second Jamanji movie takes place in a tropical, sun-kissed environment that looks the least bit Christmas-like to most. And yet, the brief slivers of the film set outside of the titular game do confirm that it's set during Christmas. Though the word Christmas isn't uttered once, nor are any verbal references made to the holiday, eagle-eyed viewers can spot seasonal decks adorned around the focal town of Brantford, New Hampshire. The most obviously Christmassy moment of the film comes right at the end, when the heroes return to the real world and meets up with a now adult Alex, played by Colin Hanks, who has brought a Christmas tree home for the family. Even so, without any snow to speak of, and so much of the movie being set in a digital jungle, it's tough to remember that Christmas is part of the equation at all. On the other hand, the fact that Welcome to the Jungle managed to gross almost $1 billion worldwide while releasing mere days after The Last Jedi is a Christmas miracle all of its own. Number 5. Brazil. Terry Gilliam's Brazil is a masterful sci-fi dystopian satire beyond all compare, but what's less discussed is that it's also one of the weirdest Christmas films ever. About a dozen verbal references are made to the film's Christmas setting throughout, in addition to numerous glimpses of basically all the traditional Christmas iconography, trees, decorations, and so on and so forth. And yet, the most prominent visual nods to the season are bookended at the beginning and end of the movie. Firstly, when Archibald Buttle, Brian Miller, is arrested at his home, the Buttle household is adorned by a Christmas tree and other decorations, while the family's young daughter asks her mother how Father Christmas will be able to visit them without their home actually having a chimney. And near the film's ending, after Sam, Jonathan Pryce, is arrested, he wakes up in his cell greeted by Mr. Helpman, Peter Vaughan, dressed in a Santa Claus uniform, confirming Brazil to be one of the most truly nightmarish depictions of Christmas time ever committed to film. Unless you happen to watch Batman Returns when you were like 4, which I did. I never emotionally recovered. Number 4. The Last Boy Scout. Writer and director Shane Black is famous for his Christmas set stories. Lethal Weapon, a holiday favorite of the Patterson household, The Long Kiss Goodnight, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and Iron Man 3 all take place around the festive season. But there is one black-penned movie that tends to have its holiday vibes overlooked, The Last Boy Scout. Probably my favorite Tony Scott film, The Last Boy Scout paired Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans together for an action-packed neo-noir thrill ride written when Black was going through a particularly bad time. The movie is wonderful, but also one of the most subtly Christmassy of Black's projects. While Christmas is never really discussed explicitly, The Last Boy Scout is clearly meant to take place in and around the holidays, with Willis's Joe Hallenbeck stumbling across a card that has gotten his daughter Darian in trouble at school, a crude drawing of Father Christmas with Satan Claus written on it. But the Christmassy vibes go beyond just the card. Take the scene where Joe first meets Wayne's Jimmy Dix. I mean, take a moment to look at how gorgeous it all looks anyway, but also the use of reds, greens, blues, and yellows. The lighting behind Willis makes it seem as if he's in a strip club Christmas tree. This ambiance extends to when Hallenbeck leaves the club and is stood outside cursing the scummy Senator Baynard. It might not be explicitly festive, but The Last Boy Scout more than easily fits into the canon of Shane Black Christmas crackers. Actually, while I'm here, let me know what your favorite Shane Black Christmas movie is. Lethal Weapon is kind of undefeated for me personally, but The Last Boy Scout isn't far behind. Let me know down in the comments. Number 3. First Blood. Think Rambo, and the average person will mentally conjure imagery of beefcake man-mountain Sylvester Stallone ventilating the population of a small country with an M60. No matter that the original film, First Blood, is a far cry from that kind of gratuity. You also typically wouldn't associate the Rambo franchise much with the festive season, and yet First Blood is indeed set during the holidays, as is slyly visually indicated by the police station in the town of Hope, Washington, being adorned by various Christmas decorations. Legend dictates that, similar to the Psycho situation from before, it was mere happenstance that First Blood started shooting in November 1981, at which point the shooting location of Hope, British Columbia, was already decorated for Christmas. Rather than take the decorations down, director Ted Kotcheff reportedly kept them in the film to low-key remind the audience that Rambo ends up on the run during the coldest, harshest time of the year. Number 2. Prometheus. Ridley Scott's Prometheus may be many things, one of them being an extremely underrated sci-fi banger, but let's not get into that right now. But a Christmas movie? Oh, you're damn right. Granted, Scott's Alien prequel is set primarily away from Earth and doesn't make much overt reference to the precise month of its setting, and unless you've seen the film more than a few times, you'll probably have forgotten its brief spicing of Yuletide cheer. In one of Prometheus' early scenes, Meredith Vickers, played by Charlize Theron, walks in on Captain Yannick as he's decorating a small Christmas tree on top of the titular ship's pool table. Vickers asks him what he's doing, and he retorts, quote, "It's Christmas. We need the holidays to show time is still moving." There's just one other fleeting Christmas reference a few scenes later, when the crew discovers a structure on the moon LV-223, and Holloway, Logan Marshall Green, says, quote, "It's Christmas, Captain, and I want to open my presents." These moments are so brief and inconsequential that they're easily forgotten, especially given the general lack of Christmassy iconography throughout the movie as a whole. But hey, there are definitely worse excuses to incorporate Alien Marathon into your festive viewing routine. And number 1, The Proposition. Not that I've ever been to Australia, but I'm told that Christmas is quite different there in a climate sense, and to that end, the brilliant, criminally underappreciated Nick Cave-penned Aussie Western The Proposition has a few hallmarks of being a Christmas movie or transpiring in a Yuletide setting at all. Yet the plot, which revolves around gangster Charlie Burns, Guy Pearce, being tasked with killing his older brother in order to save his younger brother from the noose, takes place in the days leading up to Christmas, with Christmas Day itself being the deadline for Charlie to grease his elder sibling. Tonally, it may feel nothing like a Christmas film, and being set in the Australian outback, there's not a lick of snow to be seen. But beyond the holiday being mentioned numerous times, the story literally climaxes with Captain Stanley, Ray Winston, having his Christmas dinner being interrupted by the Outlaws. The real lesson here, though? If you've slept with The Proposition all these years, you owe it to yourself to change that. Like, immediately.